Welcome to Slop Kings 3. Todd's
It's finally
Law.
here.
It's
Finally here.
Yeah, here we are. We slaves under Todd's Law. We have no will. And today, what is Todd's Law? Maybe you're asking that. Maybe you've already heard us mention it before with no explanation because Gabe described this to me off air, and then we mentioned it offhandedly in other recordings, maybe that aren't out yet. This concept of Todd's Law, building on our previous repertoire, our previous catalog of discussion of Slop and the kings of the domain. Gabe, do you want to educate us all, I guess, in a more formal way?
What is Todd's Law? That's a good question. We have, after your mysterious trip to the Orient, you're finally come back. Mm-hmm. You had a vision of Todd sitting beneath a bonsai tree,
with a lotus blossom in his hand. A very simple 3-petal lotus blossom.
And inside that lotus blossom was a copy of Skyrim, the disc. He's like Buddha. He's looking to the skies. He's looking to Buddha. Can you please tell me how I can make this again?
Yeah.
How can I succeed? The broken shards of Starfield, the disc just broken into the soil around him.
Mm-hmm.
He's like,
Starfield Samsara trapped him as Microsoft demons are jabbing him at all angles.
Oh, this is great. No, get the Skyrim, Alduin is like, there's this wonderful Buddha statue of the Buddha where the snakes or the Naga are covering him from rain. Like he's sitting on a coil of snakes. Mm-hmm. So he's sitting on from all the slop acid rain of his failures. He's just slowly praying to escape some slop samsara from an Xbox.
Which, that's how he rose to power, and that's how he falls. Because it came up, sorry, before we define it, the Slop Kings came up. We have the Arcanum series that probably isn't out yet, but it's coming out soon. We're doing a kind of a slow play discussion of the game Arcanum, old game. And we were just talking about, we've talked about Todd before, we've talked about Tim Cain before. Obviously came up there because those games are, Tim Cain is sort of this contrasting figure to the Slop Kings. And Tim Cain, his career he's sort of, I don't want to say he's fallen, but in terms of professional prestige and power, he's definitely not been on the side of like mass market appeal in many ways, right? Except in, he's attempted with his most recent one. But Todd, inarguably, has like what was the god of the market for quite some time. We were talking about like why that was the case, and you had some ideas on that.
Well, the reason why Todd is the king of the market, and what is Todd's Law? When you open up with Todd's Law, Todd's Law basically is the intrinsic logic of, he basically deterritorializes anything that has too much of a jagged edge. It's in many ways it's Todd. There's an idea of Todd Howard. But the reason why he's so mimetic, the reason why we know a Todd Howard meme, is because there's nothing human about Toddiel Howard. Toddy E. Howard. There's nothing human about it. He is in many ways the Patrick Bateman of the Bethesda Studios, right? You can easily, because remember, he plays as a barbarian. He hates, this is a notorious thing back in the Bethesda early days, in the early 2000s. He hates, it's like, instead of Patrick Bateman watching a Chainsaw Massacre as he does crunches, it's Todd practicing his chess moves while Conan the Barbarian's playing in the background, or Indiana Jones, right? He likes the barbarian builds. And with Todd, what is Todd's Law? Todd's Law is the art of simplification. It's about, literally, it's Candy Crush, but it's dude-coded Candy Crush gameplay, for all intents and purposes. Candy Crush design philosophy, but for dudes. Right, you make things so simple. You make the reaction, you get the trigger of the periphery of your audience's nerves so instantaneous. You got them like an old Chinese businessman on a damn pachinko machine. You just got them slamming that little button for the little
Wouldn't it be Japanese?
Dopamine. Well, yeah, the Chinese businessman visiting Japan to get that sweet pachinko because Xi Jinping doesn't let them gamble at home. Yeah. He sends them to a rice field to work.
Yeah, just had to represent Cap there. And you had also said, when you think about it, and this could extend beyond games to movies and shows and other things, but if it takes more than 5 minutes to process, and in terms of games, because that's Todd's area, if it takes more than 5 minutes to learn and master a feature, then just drop it. Period.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good threshold to keep in mind.
Yeah, if it takes more than 2 buttons to use properly, because if you look behind the scenes, like Patrician TV, colleague of the show, he talks about this with he reveals during game jams, during the development of Skyrim. They talk about this where with spears, like they had spears working in Skyrim's engine, and but they cut spears because Todd thought it was too complicated. And his interview, I think, with Notch, or back in the old days, he's like, what can we cut out and what can we just meld into? Like, he wants to monopolize where it's just a smaller, you cut out all the branches, you just prune and you prune and you prune. You take out repair from Fallout 3, you take out skills, and it's all morph into like a perk sheet, like literally like a Borderlands tier perk sheet for all intents and purposes. Like the leveling system is basically just Borderlands 2 for all intents and purposes.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good point. And we were talking about in contrast to Cain, and a thought that occurred to me, Todd is interesting because he's kind of an aspect or a champion of what people talk about as refinement culture, where you just keep sort of trimming off all the fat, all the edges of of any property or like a logo, right? So every logo, you take off anything that's like a finer detail that you can't make out and just have it be the most base shape of it. And similarly with Bethesda games, as they progress, like I always think of the jump from Morrowind to Oblivion to Skyrim, I think that perfectly encapsulates some of that refinement culture idea. You take out some of the more crunchy number stuff where you might have had to read the guidebook or something to, comprehend what's going on behind the scenes, or have a willingness to engage with random number generation. Which, funny enough, random number generation, I've heard some Zoomers really bashing on it and treat it as like an unalloyed bad thing to have random number generation in like a combat in a game, which I find super interesting, as this idea of if they don't have direct control over it, if they're like 1 or 2 button presses or like movement doesn't immediately like change the outcome, that's just a bad thing in terms of game design from their perspective, which I think is part of it's a learned behavior from this Todd's Law thing, where it's like, if I have to learn about the subsystems, it's bad.
Wait, that was the biggest Zoomer filter with Morrowind. Like, even purists, I used to have friends in gaming forums, and the only mod they said, play vanilla, except just download the mod that lets you guarantee to hit them. Even with vanilla purists, even with RPG purists.
So weapon skills do nothing at that point in Morrowind.
Yeah, you're just guaranteed to hit.
Yeah.
Because the animations, like, well, it looks like my guy's hitting them.
Yeah.
So yeah, to this day, I guess you could say I never truly played a vanilla Morrowind experience.
You haven't?
Oh, nope, because I always played it with at least that mud on.
Well, that's a huge disservice to yourself. But that's my point to the Zoomerism. People grow up not knowing any different. Like under the slavish rule of Todd's Law, no alternative, because people self-reinforce. Like, there's this fear of, it's the same with learning curves. It's another like aspect where Cain is different, where Cain games have these harsh inclines in challenge, but Todd's Law, and why it's so successful, I think, is because it always creates, if you cut any feature that takes too much time to master, or any in a movie or something, anything that's too challenging to the audience, that oh wow, I have to think in an empathetic way with a murderer or a rapist, you cut that out. Instead, it's Marvel tier, good guys versus bad guys, and that's all you get. And I think it's this self-reinforcing thing where you have this smooth learning curve, challenge curve that Todd's Law produces, and people get comfortable with that. And it becomes uncomfortable to go back to the challenge, to go back to the taste of sourness that makes the sweetness all the better, that previous generations were more acclimated to.
So you're saying is I'm not a real Morrowind player? I'll never be a real Morrowind player?
Unironically, you can redeem yourself, but yeah, you just went down like 5 points in my book in terms of gamer proness. Because, all right, small side tangent. basically the majority of what weapon skills do in that game is increase your to hit chance. And so if you have 100% to hit chance from the start of the game, like you're literally leveling up for no reason.
Well, no, because you don't want to get paralyzed spammed by the scribs, like your little fucking
level 1 worms.
Dude, every Morrowind retrospective starts off with the dudes getting like paralyzed spammed by those little fucking worms.
Yeah, well, you know what? You could redeem yourself, Gabe. You know, you grew up under Todd's Law. I grew up under its rise, so I empathize.
Yeah, you grew up under the codes of Cain.
Yeah,
right. During the code of the Cain Confederation.
What is the Cain Code?
The Cain Code is something much different from Todd, because with Todd, if you notice, they use the term setting, and you notice the way Tim Cain uses the term setting and the way Todd uses setting are two very different things. With Todd, it's purely an aesthetic, while the setting influences the design. He even says it in terms of mechanics. With Cain says, you don't want to do mechanics first. You got to do the setting so the mechanics actually make sense within the world. Notice he wants logical consistency, or at least consistency in game design with the world you are making. For example, is eating mechanics, is survival mechanics. Well, guess what? If you have survival mechanics, well, does your game involve you going to the bed? Is there bedrooms? Would Silent Hill 2 make sense if you had to stop by and sleep in a bed while a sexy nurse is trying to rape you? Right? As a true Silent Hill 2 fan, I've also only known it from YouTube perspectives.
Honestly, me too. I never had a PlayStation or anything. Cain Code. So I think that's an important distinction because, yeah, Cain Code is talking about the emphasis is on realizing the setting and the mechanical sense of verisimilitude, like feeling you're in place, all the mechanical lines making sense. Whereas Todd's Law is slavishly loyal to the player in a way, right? It's kind of that false like AI slave servant. How do I please you, master? It's like it's obsessed with never making them uncomfortable. Whereas the Cain Code is all about making the setting itself comfortable, quote unquote, as in realized and consistent.
Internally consistent.
Which can be uncomfortable, actually, to the player. You know, I was thinking about our Arcanum sort of playthrough that we're doing. And that game really epitomizes what you're describing in terms of there's like an obtuse light system, which is not really well explained and is complex. There's a noise system you don't really see. There's like he calls it his kitchen sink game. There's all these little rules in it and you don't totally see it. But the setting kind of reacts in a more realistic way because of it. But it can be frustrating sometimes until you read into it and understand more what's going on. That just this. I think like what I'm zooming in on is this sense of whether it's the artist is trying to serve their art form as in like the setting, quote unquote, or they're trying to serve I guess fittingly the Slop Kings. Are they a follower of Todd's Law where they're trying to serve the customer and the customer is always right, and they're trying to get mass market appeal that way?
Right, and if you notice with Todd, he wants to front load the story. He wants to front load the mechanics, like with Skyrim. You know, you get hit with a dragon shouts. The longest mechanic to be shown is his dragon shouts. For all that's, hold on, excuse me.
Good stuff, baby.
Sorry, that was a dragon burp. But if you notice with the Skyrim mechanics, you get introduced to smithing. You get introduced to basically stealing with the Dragon Claw quest. They front load everything immediately in the first 5 minutes. Well, in Arcanum, you really, for example, with crafting, you don't really get to crafting until you get to Tehran. You can spend a good hour to 2 hours before you even hit Tehran. You're not even allowed to access for the main map until you at least cross the bridge with the bandits.
Yeah.
And you don't get introduced to a lot of the mechanics. I mean, for example, you can play for a long chunk of time without realizing the resurrect spell, for example, if you're a mage.
Yeah, there's a lot of like unforced. You're not forced to explore it. It's just there. Whereas, I guess the Todd's Law, would that apply to maybe like World of Warcraft? Like that definitely is the whole idea in terms of MMOs. And I've never really played MMOs. I know there's a whole idea of the theme park versus what's the other one, like Playground or whatever, where it's like more of an open sandbox, playground versus sandbox. And definitely the playground model, which is what WoW has, had won out. We're really focused on this sort of guided experience where you have a forced start point, you have to level up through a certain guided way, as opposed to EVE Online is the sandbox version of that, which never experienced a huge. It got very big, but it was never on the same scale as WoW, even at its height.
Because the systems are emergent from the overall setting and theme. Right, you have people creating their own laws and gangs and real life cyber crimes, and like Cap told us a story of something along these lines when we covered, I think, Quarter Lives or something along these lines.
Yeah, I want to get actually the guy on at some point to interview. I've just been too busy with other stuff, but he has a Substack. The guy that was the head of the Goon. I'll try to remember to link it below. Message me someone if you're interested in it and you don't see it. He has like basically inspired by, he read The Prince, and he's been writing it as like own autobiography of his experience leading the Goon Legion or whatever it was called, like the largest gang when there was that enormous war where like billions of dollars effectively were spent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's writing the modern day Machiavelli.
Yeah.
But EVE Online, the great men of history, instead of conquering the world, are currently playing multiplayer games online.
Yeah, I've read some. It's pretty good. I just haven't read a lot of it because it's still in progress. I don't like reading serialized stuff, to be honest.
That sounds like a great concept, though. I'm not going to lie. I think that would actually be very interesting to read.
Yeah. I'd love to finish it and then have him on at some point. But anyway, back to Cain. So we have our definitions. Todd's Law: features that take less than 5 minutes to learn or are deemed too complex by some other metric, or just should be dropped. That's Todd's. That's the iron rule of Todd's Law.
He would say something. Can it be folded into a main pillar? Because he says, can it be folded into things? Can you fold armor into just basic armor? Instead, for example, with Morrowind, he's like, oh, can we just fold, instead of having a leg armor and arm armor or shoulder blades and so forth? And he only brought it back for Fallout 4 because of the RNG. They would take RNG out of the combat, but they will not take RNG out of the loot system. Mm-hmm. Because RNG doesn't hit you with dopamine when it's combat, but it sure as hell hits the player with dopamine when it's loot.
I never understood that, because it does for me. Like I find it fun to have the random hit thing, but I guess some people find it frustrating. But
because the RNG, if you notice, the reason why they brought back the layered armor system in Fallout 4.
Oh no, I know what it was. Sorry. Oh no, I just want to say, with the biggest transition that triggered me was the whole merging of blunt weapons and axes into a single thing. And what was it, short sword and long sword or something like that? Like, kind of doesn't really make sense, but that is a great example of what you're saying about folding things into other things, where it's just round it into it. You can still have it. If it's too different, cut it out. So there is, I guess you can still have some complexity. Mechanically, it has to merge together. Like, visually, it can be complex, but mechanically, it has to be straightforward.
Yeah, it has to be a homogenizable experience. It has to be as homogenized as possible, right? Except, of course, the stealth archer build, right? Mm-hmm. The stealth the one exception is the broken ass stealth archer build.
Yeah,
and you can get to an equilibrium point where you get like, there's Mickey D's, like Todd Howard is the Ray Kroc of like the gaming industry, right? You could see yourself at 3 a.m. in the morning, driving through, getting a quarter pounder, and sitting down and playing your Skyrim modded Serrano rape fantasy quest mod when you come home. But in terms, there's Slop, there's fast food Slop, and there's there's Starfield. Right, there's the quality level that's below McDonald's.
Burger King. You're right, yeah.
Yeah, there's the Burger King. The only thing worse than a 3 a.m. McDonald's run is the 4 a.m.
Burger King run. Is all we got, man. Eat up. Yeah.
Or Jack in a Box. I'd say Jack in a Box is actually worse than McDonald's.
You know, I've never actually been to a Jack in the Box. They had a food poisoning scare when I was young. And yeah, my parents like refused to go there. And then when I was old enough to eat there myself, there's none near here. yeah, so it's always been something like vaguely curious about, like what goes on in there? What's in a Jack in the Box?
I've never seen a non-hood Jack in the Box.
Yeah,
It was Jack in the Box was the victim before Red Lobster, right? It was,
nice.
but basically that's because what is Todd's idea of homogenization, of constantly pruning and pruning and pruning until having a very hard and fast Apollonian game design, which is what Tim does. What Todd does, he basically wants you to play with Play-Doh. He wants you to just give, like, here, you can make your own shapes. That's what he gives. Basically, he's giving a toddler Play-Doh. And what happens with that is Starfield, basically. It's so malleable, it's so mushy, it's so calorie empty, it just, you get bored with it after like 5 minutes of mushing it for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, it's scared to have a hard edge. It's scared to have form to itself, and so it's almost too subservient. You know what it is? It's like the Matrix, right? Remember the Matrix? Were like, oh yeah, the first Matrixes were a heaven, right? It was like this idealized world, but people rejected it because it was too good. It's kind of like that. It's like if you go in, the learning curve is too gentle, the combat is too generic, and it's just like, okay, now I don't believe it anymore. I don't buy this as like an artistic product. But Todd has actually just won a major battle in the field of slop, Gabe. As you may have been aware, the whole reason we started this miniseries was to do a like live react to Oblivion Remake's release.
Yeah,
completely like lost track of that. Life got in the way, but it's out now. So, is there any lesson to be learned from that? It seems like Todd has routed all doubters, and all the feedback I saw, or all, there was some naysayers. I know there's some feedback. Chuds were seething because the Oblivion remake had not genders, but it had like identity 1, identity 2, or something really lame like that. And then there was some thing where they modded it. The mod got blocked, and the mod got unblocked because something. But in the larger field of normiedom, I think people view Oblivion Remake as a success. Is that just proof Todd's Law wins again, or is there any seeds of doubt there?
You know what? On the case of Oblivion, and the reason why they have to do the Oblivion remake, even though Todd said before, when he was feeling confident with Starfield, when he did an interview for GQ, he said, I want people to experience Morrowind as it is. I don't believe in remakes. And then after Starfield shit the bed, they're looking back at victories now. But what's happening is they're becoming petrified. They're becoming old. They no longer, this white man can't even jump. He's crawling at this point, right? And I think I would like to have a third opinion on this take here on the Oblivion remake. I think this describes it perfectly. This is from a dear friend of the show and mentor of the show. I think you'll recognize this, Dave. At last, in the gray dawn of civilization, the fire in the soul dies down.
Oh no.
The dwindling powers rise to one more half-successful effort of creation and produces the classicism that is common to all dying cultures. The soul thinks once again, and romanticism looks back piteously to his childhood. Then, finally, weary, reluctant, cold, it loses its desire to be, and as an imperial Rome wishes itself out of overlong daylight and back in the darkness of proto-mysticism, in the womb of the mother, in the grave. The spell of a second religiousness comes upon it, and late classical man comes to the practice of the cult of Mithras, of Isis, of the sun, those very cults which a soul just born in the East has been pouring a new wine of dreams and fears and loneliness. That, I think, Spangler.
I was about to say, I hate that I know who wrote that before you said it. Like I'm just a year like hating you the entire time you read that. That Spangler is now like a part of my vocabulary.
She's canon now. He's part of the canon.
The Spengma male rises rises in the east.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, when a civilization starts to get old, it looks back in nostalgia at its youth, and it becomes stagnant, and it tries to create a form of classes. It becomes classical, and it tries to recreate the form of its greatest hits without embodying the internal rhythm that produced those hits to begin with.
Yeah.
And that's what the Oblivion remake is.
Exactly. It lacks the ability to create that vision, and so it tries to re-embody vision. Because, yeah, importantly for the Oblivion remake, against what many people expected and very much feared from what I saw from the reviews and everything, or, previews prior, as it was still just unannounced, people thought they were going to change the story, that they were going to add major components, they were going to do this, that. It was actually, first of all, it was mostly not done by Bethesda, it was done by a third-party contractor. But, they had creative control, of course. But, they really kept it almost exactly the same. They did some, they redid some voice lines and stuff to sort of pretty it up. Visuals obviously got a lot of work, a lot of blood and sweat went into that. But creatively, and which is what we're talking about, right? We're not too concerned with the graphics and stuff beyond art design in this sort of cultural context. They played it so safe that they really didn't do anything creative, and people loved it, to your point. So I guess that is a sign of a lack of confidence on their side, or willingness to rock the boat.
Well, if you notice this, my other aspect of noticing, they yearn. One part of them yearns for a neoclassicism of their peak of their culture, and the other part looks for like fresh, kinky, new like mystical violist sun cults. And what is the Bethesda version of a sun cult? What Spengler talked about is the land of the sun, the rising sun, Japan. Right? Where did they get the idea for remakes? Where all this big budget remakes come from? Resident Evil 1 remake, Resident Evil 2 remake, and the Final Fantasy remakes. If you notice, the big budget remakes of classics in this style has been forerunning by Japan, by the big Japan properties.
Those ones were more creative, though, from what I've seen. Like, they actually took more liberties with... I do not play any of the Final Fantasies, but I know the one with the guy with the big sword probably doesn't narrow it down. But I know that one, they actually changed it like pretty significantly. Like, they broke into 3 mini remakes or something like that. Like, it was a whole thing, and there was like new dialogue and new this and new that, which is interesting to think about in terms of like Japan versus America culturally, where we are and maybe our sense of ourselves, and Bethesda as maybe an icon of Americanness.
Yeah, they're looking to the east for new ideas, and that's where they get the idea.
Or their past, like ours looks towards the past, whereas theirs, whatever you want to say about the quality of the product, they do dare to mess with it. Whereas the Oblivion remake, I haven't played it. I don't really see the value of it, to be honest.
Did they put in the cut arena at least? Because I know Oblivion had a cut arena.
I don't know. I don't think so. I've not heard of anything being added, period. And I think that would be advertised. From what I heard, it was exactly Oblivion. Some of the mechanics got tweaked, like the leveling system got tweaked, because I know it was kind of fucky in the original. Some of the other, some stuff got tweaked, but nothing you would notice unless you were a avid player and you read the guides recently.
Yeah, if you notice, and even they lost the bloom. They literally lost the bloom of youth, right? Because the color shading was ass in the remake. They had to mod the color of the grass and the sunlight back in.
Yeah. It was very. It lost that painter impressionistic quality, and it became more realistic to the point where it looks nice, but it doesn't look unique. Which is another reason why I can't picture myself playing the remake, because it's just like I've already played it. I played it decades ago, or a decade ago. I'm not that old, or it's not that old either. But
You're listening to Alien Ant Farm illegally via Napster.
Unironically, I think I listened to Alien Ant Farm when I was in college, just to date myself, and I was like, "Damn, this is so fucking
They're a great band. Yeah. I love movies.
Actually, you know what? Unironically, Alien Ant Farm was really good live. I'll stand for that because they played stuff I never heard before, and they were like very passionate performers. Shout out, friend of the show, Alien Ant Farm.
Man, you were a certified wigger back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Did you get the Jinko pants and everything and the white shoes?
I was, yeah, man. I dyed blonde hair. You know it. I was there.
Oh, you had the frost tips? Did Dave have the frost tips?
Not really, no. But I did respect to those that gave a good show.
Respect to our wiggers out there.
Shout out, Spanger Male wiggers. Listen again right now on the radio, home radio. No. I think that's like a fascinating contrast. And then speaking of, well, let's see anything else on Oblivion. Speaking of remakes.
Dun dun dun. Are we talking about the same thing?
I think we're talking about the same thing. The thing that partly inspired us to get into this, because we were just going to let the Oblivion remake come and go. I think we had some thoughts on it, but we kind of got some of our ideas out early with Slop Kings 1 and 2. So it's like, yeah, whatever, it's out. I was traveling. You were seeing some celebrities. We were just being busy.
I was making contacts. I was the publicist of TOOKY'S mag, making contacts
on that e-celeb grind. But then something came out that we couldn't cotton to this, like this kind of remake shenanigans. And I actually haven't seen this yet. You shared like an infographic and some images with me, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, so speaking of Todd's Law, see, Todd, much like the Sith, he now has an apprentice.
The rule of two. There can only be two Slop Kings. Sanderson, watch out! They're coming for you.
Oh yes, no, he's Sanderson's Dooku, right?
Sanderson is on his knees aboard the Death Star, whatever, like, oh, I served you so well, Master. Surely you wouldn't. And Todd's like, I was always the real master in this relationship.
Do it.
Do it. Cut his head off.
Okay, so Brian Fargo. If you look at his beautiful bastard right
you're
here,
not screen sharing if it's closed.
I'm about to screen share right now. Hold on. Share present. You could. This man before Tim Kaine. You know how Doc Ock was the initial antagonist of Spider-Man before Green Goblin?
Mm-hmm.
Well, look at Mr. Donald Octavius of Tim Kaine's past. This man.
Yeah. Very unbecoming. No, unbecoming. What's the word? Unimposing.
Yeah, and please don't pay attention to either the swastika on his left shoulder nor the Star of David. I have no idea why these Buddhist symbols are appearing on his left shoulder. So, for all the old heads in the CRPG scene, this man is the reason we never got a real Fallout 2. This is why this man cucked Tim Kaine from his baby franchise, actually. Denied him his bonus.
This man denied his Christmas bonus. 20 years later, 40 years later.
Not only cucked him of his fellow compatriots, this Brian Fargo was the head of Interplay when Fallout became a thing. He was the boss, notoriously infamous for stealing Tim Kaine's bonus away from him after completing Fallout 1 on a shoestring budget and making record sales to the point where Tim Kaine, Leonard Boyarsky, and of course Jason Anderson, also known as Jason Judas formed Troika Games, which made Arcanum. Now, in the footsteps of Todd, much like how Todd stole Fallout to make Fallout 3, Brian Fargo has stolen two of Tim Kaine's butt buddies from days long gone by. He has stolen,
metaphorically speaking.
Development dudes. He has stolen. If you look at one of the founders of Troika and one of the best artists, actually, according to Leonard, if you look at the bear on the right, No, and notice the signs were there. The signs of his portrayal were there. He's wearing a Fallout 3 Bethesda shirt.
Fake fan alert.
He's wearing Bethesda merch. So these are the founders of Troika. These are the guys who gave you Arcanum. So Jason Anderson, if you notice, Tim has said, well, we haven't seen Jason for a long time. Him and Leonard are still tight as can be, right? But Jason has gone to the dark side. He has gone to the Brian side of things. He's taken the 30 pieces of silver from Brian Fargo to work in exile and to create this abomination of what used to be so beautiful and so true and so right. He left to create what we our golden girl. In reality, Arcane was the golden girl. If Fallout was like the rough and ready, like rebel child, Arcane was the golden girl of Tim Kane's like the. It was Athena. It was Athena's bringing out from his mind.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, damn this window. Hold on, let me present it here. Share screen right here. No,
Fallout would be Aphrodite springing forth from his frothing testicle cream. Whereas, this is his Athena, his formed goddess, his warrior queen would be Arcanum. And this ties into the Todd Lawification. And I have not seen this stuff in detail, but you can see the contrast.
Behold the twisted mockery of Arcanum's perfection.
Once you were elves, twisted. Once you were Kino, turned, tortured into this bullshit, this Reddit ass bullshit with robot with a mustache.
To 2014 era DeviantArt Steampunk fan page. So the reason why I'm beefing with this, the reason why we're talking about this is because clear as day, you could see them basically just ripping off the cover of Arcanum here. And you notice the steamship next to the girl's left to the girl's head. Notice, by the way, you see her cheek prominently.
Can you pull up the Arcanum one too after for contrast?
I would love to do side by side. Okay, so let me pull up Arcanum. Now this is long ways Arcanum.
Just because besides us, we viewed it recently because we're playing through it for the series, but most humans probably haven't seen this in 10 years or so.
All right, and this is the Arcanum cover. Mm-hmm. Now, notice, by the way, a drastic difference. Actually, I wish we could do side by side. Can we do layout? Can I do two things at once?
You might. If you just do full screen share, you probably can. But it'll share your whole screen.
All right, I'll share something else. And so notice the similarities, right? So you got this one, Slop, absolute bastardization of soul. Right, you got the airship to the left of the woman. Notice the color of her lips. Notice her hair. Notice not her hair. Notice her eyebrows. Very pointy Armenian-esque eyebrows. Right. Now notice the Arcanum eyebrows of Arcanum. Open link and screen lag and the Arcanum cover. Right, damn near the same lipstick. Of course, she doesn't have elf ears. But notice also strikingly similar eyebrows and the same kind of chin. And notice the airship is to her left. You're looking to the left of her skull when you're looking at the airship. Mm-hmm. But the drastic differences between the two covers is that Clockwork Revolution, which if I actually typed it into DeviantArt right before we started recording. And over 300 results came up. It's like it was cartoonishly generic. Like you could, you ask ChatGPT to come up with a steampunk name for your video game, I guarantee you, Clockwork Revolution will came up like 10 times.
I'm doing it right now. Actually, I guarantee Clockwork is going to be in there somewhere.
It's so generic, and you know what? I'm gonna kneel. I'm gonna apologize to Lord Cain for the steamwork and magic obscura. It actually was Kino, Mr. Cain. I'm sorry for doubting you. I should have never doubted Dakota Cain. I brought this upon myself. It turns out Arcanum of Steamwork and Magic Obscura, despite being bad on like ESO like marketing was genius for artistic merit.
Yeah,
I got filtered.
it's number 2, by the way. I did a chat GPT for steampunk name for steampunk game. The top choices are Brass and Steam, The Clockwork Dominion. Number 2. Number 3 is Airship Arcanum, which they're ripping off the game, I guess. I refuse to believe it came with that originally. Or Gears of Ether. So there you go, Gears and Cog. Or here's the last one, The Cog and Crown.
No, that's gonna be the DLC, the Cog and Crown for Steamwork Revolution.
Honestly, Brass and Steam or Cog and Crown, I think I would take over Clockwork Revolution.
It's just so generic. It seems like a parody. It seems like a parody of a steampunk game.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference in style, if you notice this, you take a look at this, and it's not generic. Even the most generic thing on first sight, other than maybe the elf. Yeah, the elf is maybe a generic elf. But notice one of the key little artistic details is the little Celtic earring she has.
Mm-hmm.
So because if without the earring, it's just dead space. You can tell either. I don't know if Boyarsky did the cover, because Boyarsky did the cover for Fallout 1, and he was supposed to do the cover for Fallout 2. Mm-hmm. If you see the loading screen with the tribal, with the feather out of his power armor helmet, that was supposed to be the cover.
Which is
for Fallout
so
2,
much more Kino, by the way. Like, I remember before I ever learned that, I saw that while playing the game. I was like, wow, that's so fucking cool. That should be the cover art. Like, I thought that independently because it just looks that good, as opposed to just the generic sort of bug-eye helmet thing they went with.
But with the design, I do like the Enclave armor. The Enclave armor was generally good, but it was also, it represented natural cycles or degradation of Fallout's culture and themes. Mm-hmm. Was that you went from a high tech society in Fallout 1 to you were the most high tech person from a most high tech society in Fallout 1, and now the roles are reversed. You are the most primitive person in a much more high tech society, mm-hmm. and this is also reflective here. I can guarantee you that's such a Boyarsky thing, just so there isn't dead space behind your ear to put the little Celtic little earring there. And if you look at the wizard, right, because if you look, he's sandwiched between the dwarf and the train, right? And the train, the dwarf has like a flamethrower. Mm-hmm. He has like some weird dwarf power armor going on. So the wizard looks like the most generic thing, right? He's casting a spell at you, whatever. He's what's his name from Shaduk. This is like book 3 if it ever comes out.
Yeah, good callback. And there's a big contrast between tech on one side, magic on the other, which your mind won't understand the first time you see it, but it creates one. There's a color contrast between them, like there's a cool colors versus hot colors. But then also there's like a thematic difference that makes sense when you play the game, but just also instinctively is like, oh, there's a story here. These guys are very different. I could see that. Also, one's a manlet, one's a lanklet.
Yeah, and if you notice, if you look at the wizard closely, he has like tactical Rob Liefeld 1990s comic book pouches. Uh-huh. He's wearing a pouch across his chest and his belt, and he's wearing sneakers. He's wearing very, very like Frank Miller-esque sneakers. Mm-hmm. So you can see actually even the generic-esque wizard, even he is wearing modern getup, by the way. And you can see the contrast. By the way, the contrast between onto the far left, bottom left, you see like your generic evil like creature with a sword and a mace. No, that's not a mace. A morning star? Which one was the chain? I think it's a morning star.
Chain. Actually, that's concept art. They just turned it into a black silhouette.
Is it?
Yeah, it's concept art of like a human running with a weapon or something like that. If you go into their thing, they just repurposed it.
Oh, well, because it's good contrast between that. There's nothing actually fantastical about the train. They didn't do too much. Like, this is a beautiful look at minimalism and how much like world details can you fit into a concept or a cover without being like garish or in your face. Mm-hmm. Right? Because this cover tells you all you need to know. Right? Because the train is just a normal ass train, but in a fantastical setting with elves and shit. It's the most strangest thing here, actually, technically speaking. Mm-hmm. And also it makes an X because you got the forest on the bottom left, which is on fire, right? Intrigue, and then on the diagonal right, you have the castle. It looks like a normal castle, but in reality, when you look closer, it actually looks like a citadel or a city with pipes with literally fluids. You can see the fluids.
Water pouring out. It looks like looks like it's floating like a magical castle, but you're like, oh, maybe it's just on a hill and it's a landscape, but it's limited because of this. And importantly, this is all just the center of the image. The majority of it is actually just sort of a metallic texture background, right? And you just have
Yeah.
this central image that's emerging from a hole in that's sort of like inviting you into this. And in terms of like stimulation, it's interesting to think about in terms of like challenge level and stimulation. Like it's limited in scope, but like it pulls you into a small area of like high design, as opposed to clockwork bullshit. What's it called? Clockwork Revolution.
Clockwork Revolution.
Yeah, Slopwork Revolution, which is actually. Can you flip back to that? Unless you have more points on this one. As a contrast, like look how hyper stimulating, and just like your eye to me is not invited to wander in the same way.
There's nothing to focus on.
Yeah, like something I was told once by someone that was an artist who I respected was good art makes your eye travel in circles. This one somewhat does, like, because there's the words that I look at the words, and the words are almost a circular pattern, and then I see a big giant face, and then I see there's a big giant robot. So I kind of get a bit of a circular effect there, but it's not an interesting circle, if that makes sense. Like I don't have questions of like, oh, what's the woman think of that robot? What's the robot think of that woman? Whereas in the other image, it does invite the contrast of hot and cool colors, the contrast of magic and tech, and the train, like you called out, the mundaneness that looks absurd or unusual in the setting. In this, it all looks equally exceptional, if that makes sense. Like everything is outstanding.
There's nothing lonely. If you notice, the train, it's a character in the Arcanum thing. It's right next. It's basically a character spot where a character will be standing there. The train is a character because it's part of the setting. Trains might as well be a character in there. But if you look at here, you could deeply see the contrast. Like you said, art is supposed to teach you in like very tight vortex-like circles. Like you're supposed to see, oh, I noticed this detail, I noticed that detail. Because even with the castle, it's like you thought at first it's a castle, but when you zoom in, oh, it's not a castle. It looks like more like a university, and so forth, so forth. Because with Arcanum, you had what 4 or 5 elements. Like really, it's actually very, very like a subtle cover for a game. But it tells you a lot about the setting. With this. All I can tell is, oh, you got the wealthy capitalists, and that's probably where the end boss is with the lightning and the tower. And then you got the social commentary about capitalism, man. Look, you got the revolting masses. And like, oh, it's steampunk, so we got droids flying. And you got the cops and the robots on the left side. And then you got the central figure. The two things that draw your eyes to the most in this cover is the lady and the robot. But the thing is, none of them are interesting. Like the robot, it looks like a generic robot. Even if you zoom in, you see that he has like a mustache.
That's the worst. I wish you hadn't told me about that, by the way. Before we started recording, any hope I had for the series is gone.
Like the armor on the guards. I must admit, the armor design for the guards actually look good. I would say they objectively do look good.
I can't really make it out. I know you saw the trail already, but I haven't. Within this image, I cannot make the people out.
Like other than the lady and the robot, is there anything that actually tells you about the world other than it's generic capitalism, bad revolt against the masses?
Yeah, not really. No, just there's the airship, which is like okay, steampunk, and then there's some kind of explosion. I'm like, okay, I get there's some kind of like fight, but it's a game. I assume there's some kind of combat, so that doesn't actually tell me anything.
Yeah, it doesn't tell you anything about the city or there's no contrast. Really at all, other than the zero punctuation. Shout out to that ancient meme, that dead meme. Remember he did a video on the prevalence of orange and blue in cover design?
No, I think I saw that one.
Like if you notice, a lot of movie posters use high contrast blue and orange. And if you notice, they kind of do that with the Arcanum thing too, because you can see here with the lightning and with and you notice what other aspect of this is different from the Arcanum thing. it's much too clean. If you notice, the robot looks clean, the lady looks clean, the airship looks clean. So everyone, keep this image in your mind, or pull it up on your phone or whatever, or use if you have a multi-set. We have a bougie audience. This is a top tuggers. You can afford a second monitor. So keep this on your second monitor. And what I want to do is do the Arcanum cover. Notice the more aged look. I mean, she actually has gray hairs, by the way. That's a neat little touch. The elf is actually aged in this cover.
Is that gray hair or is that the lighting? I always assumed it was lighting, but maybe it is gray hair.
Well, but even if it's lighting, it's a nice little detail to have that there's different color gradations in the hair. You notice the steam, the engine, the train isn't clean. Look at the airship. You can literally see the wrinkles and the decay, and like that airship looks beat up.
Yeah, has that Star Wars rub down on everything, right? Original Star Wars, not the fake Star Wars, the prequels, the stuff you poor kids grew up on.
Yeah, I notice Tim Kaine talked about this with the design of Fallout 1, is that they wanted everything to look gritty. They wanted the UI to look gritty and dirty, right? And you can see it here. It looks rusty. The steam engine the train looks rusty. The airship looks rusty.
Yeah, the metallic texture. It's not like broken, but it just looks a little chipped in. Like on the left, there's a few little dents or something. It looks
lived in.
Gritty. Yeah.
And notice, even when you see the elements, because yes, you do see a little bit of orange and blue here, the high contrast colors, but even the comparison, the figure in the center holding, the elements of the robot looks generic. Well, this guy, the sorcerer here, does look like a generic sorcerer at first. When you look at his shoes, underneath his coat, you realize even he is more like urban, mixture. I forget. Is there a term for like mixing? Well, I guess steampunk.
Yeah, right? Is it?
But
urban, the very fact urban magic, maybe, or something.
Urban magic, right? The very fact that I don't think this is steampunk, right? Because you look at that instantly. Oh, this is steampunk. When you look at Arcanum, the first thing that comes to my head isn't steampunk. It's not generic steampunk.
Yeah.
I don't get steampunk vibes from this at all, really.
Same. It kind of predated the popularity that meme as an idea, right? Like it came out too early in some ways. It probably would have had more success if it came like 5 years later, because it caught on later. And on the idea of Todd's Law, you could communicate the idea of a wizard so much more simply and effectively, but they chose as to be slavishly loyal to the setting to display in this urban magipunk, whatever you want to call it, style. And it makes it slightly less clear from a distance at a glance, but when you look at it, it's more rewarding. Whereas in contrast, the other one, you really can get it flicking through it on your phone within a second. The Todd's Lawification of Slopwork Orange, or whatever it's called.
Slopwork Orange. That's going to be called from now on. That's great.
Yeah. Because of the orange fire in the back of Slopwork Orange and Blue, is like, you're like, okay, robot, female, or steampunk text. Okay, got it. It's a steampunk, with robots. Whereas the added complexity makes it slightly less visually clear, maybe to a briefest of glance, but it invites that in closer inspection.
Right, and notice, and another two little small details on this, even with the elements of blue, besides his magic spell, is literally the water from the castle or the structure. I think that might be Toronto, actually. It might be a whole ass city, I think.
I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know if that's even in the game, to be honest. Because I can't think of anything that looks like that.
Well, you know what? I can accept false advertising when it's this Kino.
Exactly. No, same. I don't begrudge it. It's just it's like what the fuck am I looking at? It looks like something from a different video game.
Well, but notice the water is actually falling inside the gear towards the fires. By the way, so it's not even civilization bad, because in this case, civilization, it's about the contrast. It's not about capitalism bad and like primitivism good. The forest is on fire, and the beautiful technology of modern man is really quenching the flames by the sewage flowing into the forest. Actually, it's a nice little micro touch, because it's not only technology bad or technology dirty. You're also seeing an element of technology being seen as pure and clean next to the savage fires on the bottom left corner. And even notice the title Arcanum. Notice they even put little bolt marks.
I was thinking about that. Yeah, which makes it just look more workman-like in a way, right? Like you didn't have to have that, but it makes it look more necessary.
Yeah, it looks legitimate. It literally looks like this is factory made. It's like this was printed on sheet metal.
Mm-hmm.
And now let's go. I know I want to end it on a good note, but I got to do it. I got to show you again the Slopwork Orange.
Yeah, which is self-aware of more self-aware of itself as a title, right? It's just text.
It's so clean. That's the issue thing. It's nothing about it is dirty. Like it's not even the only thing that makes it clockwork is that the C is a clock.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's the only thing that makes it. Like they use and they just throw. Like you notice they just throw the clock motif in the background or around it and a little velvet. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing clockworky else about it. Even
true. Yeah, the lady just has kind of Victorian-ish headgear on, but yet the robots inside don't look clockworky. They actually look far more advanced than clockwork. Like a clockwork robot, if there was such a thing, I feel like it would be more like bent and bronzy colored, right? But he looks like someone that just charged out of Star Trek or some shit. Like he would be right at home in what is it? What's the one? Here's the Galaxy, like a Marvel movie. Like it looked.
Oh yeah, like Marvel Slop, MCU Slop.
It would fit. Yeah, it would fit right in there with like Captain America or something.
Like it doesn't even look Victorian. Like the little spike, the little Athena headgear the woman has looks a little bit Victorian. But with the robot, unless you zoom in to see he has like a very thick mustache, you could not tell this is like supposed to be quote unquote look Victorian-esque.
Or the flying robots. Similarly, like flying robots in general are not. Which doesn't even fit actually is an immediate contrast with you have this airship with like a blimp set up. And yet you have these little like skeeter floating hovercraft robots above people's heads on the right there. I think it's this contrast of vision of technology as this like early thing that is bulky and complex, and then this like perfectly shaped little skeeter craft, or this giant robot with a huge blue cannon arm which shoots energy blasts, presumably like super plasm or something, which is like again, which is exceeding its thing. And granted, they have magical boopadoop, crystals that shoot energy, but it's just it highlights that lack of setting fidelity. Anyway, we've been on this one for a while.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Just as a I have two final notes on this, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Is that the droids or the flying drones in the left corner? You could plop that could be out of Mass Effect. It could be out of Outer Worlds, another Cain fatality.
The Cain shame corner.
You can pay $80 to see these droids. But you can see this is basically just concept art. This is Bethesda concept. You can see like Todd. Okay, the clock tower. That's the final boss. That's where the final boss is. That's you start in the corner of the map. You have to get to the clock tower at the end, and that's where you make your final choice. You choose ending A or blue flavored ending B.
Yeah.
And there's an explosion. This is concept art set piece. This is not a cover. This is trying to show gameplay. It's not trying to show a setting. Which is a major difference. And notice, and also, again, pay attention to the blimp. That blimp looks way too clean in comparison to the very dirty, used blimp we saw of Arcanum. This doesn't look lived in. Again, this is concept art slapped on as a game cover.
Yeah, it's the unchallenging, Toddified version of a blimp. I recognize it in a millisecond glance, right? It's the most simplistic. It's the hieroglyphic form of a glyph.
This is an action RPG personified.
Is that the gameplay? I actually don't know. Like, is it?
Well,
is it
funny you mentioned that because I've seen the gameplay. You haven't. So the torture doesn't stop here, my friend. You get to see Todd's Law in action. Brian Fargo has been diligently taking notes about how to cuck Tim Cain. Tim Cain doesn't have to. He got cucked once by Todd. And Brian Fargo, man, he just wants that sloppy seconds. You see, Tim Cain's ass has just been healed after the brutal raping in Fallout 3 and Fallout 4.
That Fallout theater, the pinball scene.
Yeah, and you know, Brian's like, listen, I want to go for sloppy thirds. You know, third time's a charm, baby. So, Dave, are you ready to see Todd's Law in action? You ready to see a student trying to apply his teachings from his master, from teacher Todd?
Yeah, I want to see if he's ready to rise up. Is it gonna be a Dooku, or will he be like a true? So somehow Todd has come still alive.
Todd has returned.
Returned in the form of his student.
All right, we're ready. In 3, 2, 1, get ready to see Arcane, a modern day spiritual successor to Arcanum of Magic Obscurum. Oh, underclass.
It's British.
How about 1895? The Tangle.
All right. Oh, we are first person.
Oh my! It's just like Fallout 3.
Oh,
They took an outdated RPG. Guess what? We're making it immersive. That's commentary.
Oh no. It's all about Reddit robots.
You know, the armor design actually isn't that bad. It objectively is not that bad, actually.
Yeah.
But I don't know why it's supposed to be England, but some of the people have pickle helms from the German Empire.
Yeah, it's just mixing the era.
Also, none of these are clockwork, by the way. I don't get any clockwork from this.
Yeah, it's more advanced than that, which is why the Clockwork name doesn't make a ton of sense. I'm trying to soak this in.
Very Dishonored core.
Yeah, Dishonored does come to mind, which I never played, but just visually.
Far better than this. That classic Obsidian humor, except even worse.
Is there any gameplay? Oh, I guess here's dialogue. Robot arm.
Notice the dialogue can be easily AI generated.
What is it? Found family.
A family of outcasts, bro! Oh, this is one dialogue I hate so much. I don't know if it comes up here. It's after this. The line is so fucking bad. You got armor customization.
Threw a clock at someone. There you go.
Oh yeah, I forgot. This is time. There's time travel. Oh, here's a clockwork. So they're also ripping off Bioshock Infinite.
I hate time travel stories. They just never make any sense. Yeah, it does look very Dishonored, like with the little magic thing he did.
Yeah, so Dishonored and Bioshock Infinite, basically. Just mishmash.
I mean, ultimately, this basically seems like it's doing what Ocarina of Time did. It's just promising to do like, oh yeah, you zap between worlds. Or Legend of Zelda, whatever it was, that Link's Awakening was doing this shit.
Oh, this dialogue is so stupid. This right here. Hold on. Oh god, it's so fucking bad. You know what? I'm actually glad this is broken, because Lord knows it's going to be glitchy. So what this guy just said right here, hold on, is it going to work? Wait for it. Get it? Get it? The hunters don't like it when the rabbits get the gun. What an amazing metaphor, right? Other than, maybe a fox? Maybe a fox would make more sense? Maybe the hunters don't like it when the fox get the better of them? Mm-hmm. At least that'd be a more, lore accurate metaphor, or even a time.
Oh, yeah. Like more English, fox hunting.
Yeah, why would a rabbit have a gun?
I don't know.
That line bugged me. It's like, yeah, the high class, they send their filth down, and we like to roll around in the mud. Like, the dialogue is just so generic and so cliche, and the depictions of the wealthy here, yes, they're evil Scrooge McDuck man.
Yeah,
everyone's is a version of evil Scrooge McDuck man. And compare this to Arcanum. It's bringing that even their Bill Gates. I forget his name. It's not Bill Gates, but basically Bill Gates. Gilbert Bates. He's actually not an evil dude. He's actually a man with real regret and a man who's lived his life.
Yeah, it's understandable. Not just whacking people in the head and say, "Oh, we saw some brains. I hadn't seen it myself. Wouldn't have believed it. Fuck."
Wait, Greg? Yeah, no. The world is lived in Arcanum. This is just absolutely. It's literally what Todd would see if you give him the 5-minute Arcanum pitch.
Yeah.
It's dude, fantasy but like it's the Industrial Revolution.
No, you know what it is? Remember how Oblivion, everything got redesigned because Todd Howard saw Lord of the Rings, and he's like, "Oh my god!" Like retreats on Return of the King, and he's like, "All right, Oblivion, Cyrodiil is now Return of the King world." This is what if Todd Howard saw Sweeney Todd or fucking what was the other? What's the one with the criminals? World War I era criminals. The guy that's in the nuclear war movie. What is it called?
Nuclear war movie.
Mission Man.
This is like it's Dishonored meets Bioshock Infinite and the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah. Oppenheimer. Who's the guy in Oppenheimer?
Oh, Peaky Blinders?
Yeah. Todd Howard saw Peaky Blinders, and he demanded that like Oblivion 5 or whatever, in this case is this. He's like, all right, next game, guys, it's got to be Peaky Blinders, the game. Everyone's going to have a British accent, going to say, fuck, and not knock people on the noggin, and say, oh, who the fucking don't good?
Yeah, we in the streets, we're a family. You found your family here. You're an orphan? Well, we go beyond blood. We're mudbloods. We grew up in the blood of the mud of the soil that they dropped upon us.
Yeah.
If you notice, this also represents a design philosophy. This is another aspect of Todd's law. They don't base their designs or their like fundamental like aesthetic principles based on like concepts or like big ideas. They base it on other properties. Because Emil was based, he liked the idea of like the Federation from Star Trek, initial one, I think, for Starfield. It was Star Trek. It was Red Dead Redemption for one of the planets. I think he literally says, I played Red Dead Redemption, so I based a cowboy planet on Red Dead Redemption 2.
Right, yeah, they have like little wooden fences, and it's like, wait a minute, isn't that supposed to be the capital of whatever, of like a major power?
Yeah.
Yeah. But because someone watched Red Dead Redemption, that's what the theme of the world is.
And another guy saw this from the Cyberpunk 2077 trailer back in 2014. So one planet is supposed to be like cyberpunk and like neon and synthwave. So if you notice, their concepts are Todd's law is based on already proven formulas. Like, oh, let's remix the formula into our formula. Yeah, again, let's prune them from their tree, homogenize it, take out all the sharp edges, and see if we can just mold it and meld it into our thing.
What's the Toddism? Yeah, fold it in. Let's just fold it in.
Yeah, either fold it in or merge it into our core experience, which is open world gameplay. Right, you get Cyberpunk and you get Red Dead Redemption, but you turn it into a Bethesda. You Bethesdaify it basically. Instead of skippitification, it's Bethesdification. So you get to go to 4 loading screens. You see 3 like old balding fat dudes in skimpy underwear dancing with like 10 NPCs in a club. And like, hey, look, it's Cyberpunk, but it's in Bethesda. And you see this, for example, right? It's Dishonored meets Peaky Blinders meets Peaky Blinders, and of course, obviously, Bioshock Infinite with a time travel element, which is you could change a certain course of history. Except you don't even get your you don't get your daughter au pair as waifu material from it.
Yeah, from a storytelling perspective, actually, it's very odd because like, specifically your character is supposed to be your character, right? At least to some extent. But there's really no sense. Like they even show you like morphing into like a black man and a white woman and this and that in the little character creation screen. And so there's no real story hook because like okay, there's injustice in this world. I get it, but beyond that, that's like it's just the generic post World War II American mythos of like okay, oppressor oppressed. You know what I mean? Like it really falls back on that trope too, and to the point where there's no meaty like oh I'm a fucking Jedi like I'm something like this or there's no I guess this we're going back to the Todd's Law thing versus the Cain Code. There's no rough edge to grip onto. It says it's this buttery smooth fireman pole oiled up with canola oil of just oh yeah like we're fighting heckin' injustice and we're scrappy guys from the streets and it's like I've heard that it's just so flavorless I can't grab onto it.
You could easily imagine every single line of dialogue from that spoken here. You can have like an AI write this.
Yeah.
It's so generic and derivative.
Yeah, I generated a title that was equivalent, just as it was like number 2 on the list of 5 things.
And I'll go put the sound on background. I'll go put it on just as background footage. I just want in the background after watching that garbage. I'm going to do the opening cinematic to Arcanum. I'm not going to have the music on, so we can still talk and whatever. I just want at least the viewers to just see just the visual contrast as representative. Because I'm not even showing you Arcanum gameplay. I'm just showing you the representation of the world and see the massive differences. And if you notice Arcanum, what is Arcanum? Yes, they do base it on a property. What if a basic Lord of the Rings fantasy with elves and so forth and magic, what if it had an Industrial Revolution? Right? So you have Concept 1 and Concept B. Or saying to go Fallout. What if what if Mad Max happened in like Forbidden Planet or one of these 1950s Flash Gordon fantasy or sci-fi stories, right? Mm-hmm. But they actually think it through. Okay, we have our mishmash of A and B. That's our prior. Now we have to build upon it. That's our first principle that we have to build upon, right? And you notice, okay, so it has the technology of the 1950s, but culturally it's very grungy. It's very because Fallout 1 doesn't have references to the 1950s culturally. People like Mandela effect the 1950s from the Bethesda. Todd wasn't paying attention to Fallout 1. There's fucking constant heavy metal references. There's Tool posters in the background. They reference slasher films. The Ripper, there's an entire gang that's named after like slasher picks. Like it's not Bye Miss American Pie. The culture's not Bye Miss American Pie. They took the sci-fi from Bye Miss Americana Pie, but it's taking place in the 90s that had a post-apocalyptic happen to it. It's culturally the 90s with 1950s sci-fi tech living in a lived-in experience of Mad Max.
When does the whole idea of 1950s, the vision of the future the 1950s had, is not the 1950s was stuck for 100 years, which is the Toddification of that vision, right? Because to your point, Fallout 1 and 2, mostly 1 I'm thinking of, but their conception of the world is like it's not the 1950s. It's like it's a more fucked up world. There's a lot of things are completely different, but it's like the kind of vision. It's like people in the 1920s imagining people in the year 2000, where sitting on flying jets. You know what I mean? Or like having wings that they use to fly around their neighborhood to like deliver mail. It's their conception of the future. It's not them. It's not their present stuck in the future, which is what Bethesda views it as.
Right. And notice if you look at, I'm playing a 4K upscale in the background. And I noticed that. Notice they put the sepia filter. Right. This is a film reel from the early Victorian era. This is early filming technology, and it doesn't turn into color until we hit the interior. Right, we're looking from an objective in-world camera. If you notice, because I think this is actually supposed to be the camera that you find on the crash site. I think.
Actually, Chud, how would they take a picture of the fly device when there's no other flying devices in the world? Have you thought about that?
Fuck you, it's a cool fan theory.
It is a cool theory, but having it in setting like that, and then you go into it where your character is, and then it's color, because it's like, okay, now I'm a member of this world. I'm a part of this setting.
And the soundtrack fades in with the violin when you go. The soundtrack, I didn't notice any soundtrack when I watched the trailer, by the way. There's nothing actually interesting with the soundtrack.
Wait, to this. Wait, no, there's a song Clockwork. To this. There's Clockwork. Yeah.
Yeah, no, soundtrack. There's a lot of personality to the soundtrack here.
Okay, yeah. I was about to like chip out on you over that. No. Yeah, I can't remember anything about that soundtrack. I'll have to go back and listen again to see if anything catches my eye, if it's at all thematic.
Yeah, no, the soundtrack is horrible to Clock, because the Arcanum actually it reflects deeply the setting it's in. Right, it's all stringed instruments. There's a lot of plucking of the strings. You could detect a little bit of folk in there. You can detect it feels organic to the setting. Mm-hmm. And even in the first footage you even see they put on the classic 1890s sepia camera filter to make it look like black and white with film grain and everything. It's little touches like that. While in Clockwork, other than the accents, there, and also like some of the outfits, there's nothing quote unquote, Victorian at all about Clockwork Revolution.
I'm trying to find a copy of this song. I'm supposed to listen to the song. Hold on, I'm putting it on now.
The song from Arcanum?
I just played it on my end. No, the Clockwork Slopwork Orange music. I just put it on and played it. It's just standard movie orchestral. It's which is that's what you do. That's fine. But yeah, it doesn't have that rough edge. Doesn't have that personality. Doesn't have that Cain. Doesn't follow the Cain Code.
Yeah, this follows the Todd code, which is spectacle, which is it's first person, right? Because Lord knows, heaven forbid, a zoomer has to see something from above their heads.
That's like seeing an empty office building, right? It gives them a panic attack. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have first-person shooter mechanics, forced stealth sections that don't make sense.
Even the mechanics too actually all follow. I think I'm repeating myself, but again, the Todd'sification, it's just like, okay, so it's like Fallout 3, right? Like you have a little bit of Fallout 4 or whatever. Like you have some basic ass weapon customization, which is fine. But if that's it, that seems to be it, it's just like, okay, this is like every other game. Which Fargo. I guess he's fallen far because he used to try to drive people onwards to do different. He added some stuff to Fallout. Like he had the traits and some other stuff that was, good ideas. But this one just seems very boilerplate.
Yeah, if Fallout 3 was Oblivion with guns, this is Arcanum with mutts.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Or maybe, what this is? This is just Oblivion with guns again. I mean, they're just repeating, or it's like copying the homework of your older brother.
That's what Brian Fargo. This man. This you could see. You could put the caption "the raped" in Tim Kane's face. Hold on, let me find the picture.
Oh yeah, pull that picture with 1,000 words.
Okay, here. Okay, literally just 2 words. The rape right here. Hold on. Where is it? Oh, come on! I had you.
I think you shared it in our private chat. I don't have it open right now.
They don't want you to know. Hold on.
It's been purged from the internet in the last hour we were talking.
All right, here it is. Screen. Here we go. Look, the raped.
A man denied his Christmas bonus. About to be told he's going to be sued for $1 million for false accusations.
This is a man who's forced to endorse. Man, I love Clockwork Revolution. This is just like my baby Arcanum. Man, no, this man had to see all of his children raped, right? Fallout, Temple of Elemental Evil, right? The D&D license has gone down the drain, right? Vampire 2 is getting a Slop BioWare-esque sequel.
Didn't it get destroyed again? Like that's one of those where it got made, destroyed. Like they kept not making it. So I'm not even sure that's going to come out at this point.
No, it is, except they just instead of making how you make your background, you make your character. Now they just took everything out, making it like a BioWare game.
Okay, because that fails the Cain. Is it an RPG test? I know he's not that didactic, but it's a negative mark against it. You can't make your own character.
Yeah, you don't even get to name your own character. I think in Vampire 2, it's a named character.
Yeah, you're just playing Sid, male or female, or body type 1 or body type 2. Yeah,
you know what's more true in Viv, V-I-V. It could be Vivian, or it could be
Lil.
Vivek.
No, Lil's too feminine.
Viv, Viv. I'm Viv.
Yeah,
you could choose voice type A or voice type B with Viv.
Oh God, look at poor Tim.
Yeah, look, this man I'm sorry. This is just a picture of the rape. No, this is a picture of the rape. Like one pimp. This is like the Bethesda version of a Diddy party. This is a white man's version of a Diddy party. He got invited to the white dude's version of a Diddy party. Right? He has to see Todd Howard oiled up, Pete Hines half of Hollywood all oiled up and just taking turns raw dogging the Fallout franchise.
Yeah.
In 4K with a live studio audience.
There's chemicals in the oil, Tim. Don't trust his lies. Don't believe his lies. Oh, you know, it's so dude, it's so fucking tragic. Go ahead. It's like you had one more.
No, pop off.
No, just the whole idea of corporate ownership is so bizarre. The fact that you could work on something artistic and create it and not own it. Because if you think about like Fallout as a perfect example, right? Like Tim Cain poured his and Boyarsky and even the Betrayer, whose name I shall not speak, Anderson. They poured their heart and soul in for like 2 years or something, working weekends, working overtime to make this thing a reality. And like, it really is fucking insane to think about. It's like, oh, well, the property now belongs to the corporation that didn't give a shit and didn't support it. And then, oh, now they actually sold it to someone else. And your creation, it's just such a bizarre concept. Maybe it's a whole other episode of like IP property laws for these kinds of products, because it's I'm just imagining like the things we created, right? Like think about just our podcast series. Like what if we, did it and someone's like offered to pay for it for a while, and then all of a sudden like it got some success and we like stopped doing it, and then like 10 years from now we're sitting in a theater watching the honor Levy biopic of her in the basement, and you're being acted by Shia LaBeouf, and it is late age Shia LaBeouf, and it'd just be such a surreal experience. Like, wow, I have like zero control over this, and yet I created almost every aspect of its foundation.
It's bizarre. Tim Cain owns nothing, yet he is happy.
You won't be happy. Yeah. Oh, what's funny? That Brian Fargo looks like that guy. He's like same kind of mystery meat smiling face.
And I love the fact that Tim is actually fully dressed up while Brian is desperately trying to shill his game studio.
Yeah, he's trying to do I'm an Xbox spokesman look. Yeah.
POV, you're trying to ask Xbox Studios for another gib. He's asking for gibs.
Yeah.
Please, Todd. Please, can I have some more, Todd?
Oh God, that's sad. But all right, do we have anything else on this one? I don't want to drag it out too long. If we've gotten to the meat of it, the Todd's Law versus the Cain Code.
Well, I think this is a great example of Todd's Law, because you see someone practicing Todd's Law who is not himself Todd. Mm-hmm. So you can actually see a systemic set of behaviors, which is homogenization. Instead of treating each project as its own thing, with its own little, you have to start from square one, mm-hmm. which is what Tim always says, based on the setting. The mechanics have to be based on the setting you're working on. Mm-hmm. Right. While in Bethesda, let's take the Bethesda formula and let's apply it to a space game.
Yeah, or
Starfield.
To Fallout. I mean, the whole Oblivion with guns meme, right? That started all this. Like that. That's a perfect example of Todd's Law, where it's just like, all right, we're going to just throw it into the engine we know how to use, throw it in the form we know how to use, and they have Elder Scrolls 6 coming. Like, I bet you they're going to use the same base building mechanics that were in the latest Fallout, which I didn't play. But I know that was like a major component there. I'm sure it's going to just get carried over because it's part of the Bethesda formula. Just keep repeating it. And just just put a fresh coat of paint on it. But the diminishing returns, Gabe, does the Slop King crumble? Like, what is like with the whole Starfield thing? Maybe they've gone too far, and the slop cycle needs to start anew, and they have to find some little Cainlet, some Beach Boy, Cowboy Cain Jr.
Are you saying Brian Fargo is the new Slop King? Is he a princeling?
I don't think so. No, I think they have to find someone that's an artiste and corrupt him. I think that's how it has to work. Or a studio,
You got the Slop Kings and you got the Pudding Princelings. Just like chemical filled MGOs. What even is in pudding? You don't know. You do know that's what Brian Fargo looks like. He looks like he's made out like melting pudding. He's the pudding princeling. He's desperate. He sees the carcass of Bethesda, right? The Bethesda behemoth, right? Is slowly aging. It's got wobbly in the legs.
And now he's like one of those little shark suckers that come up, is swimming up to the side of a whale shark.
He's Worm Tongue. Brian Fargo is literally Worm Tongue. You got aging Todd Howard, right? Giga Chad Todd Howard aging on his throne. He's like, oh, let me make Fallout. I was involved in Fallout at one point. Let me, Lord Howard. Let me make Fallout 5.
Put me in, dude. If that happens, I will give full credit to you. If Microsoft dethrones Sir Howard and puts in Fargo, I think it's more like they have to co-opt an idea. They need a Cain to survive. Like they have to find the next Cain, who's maybe has like a little team or a studio within a company. They have to acquire, and then they just apply their methodology to it. That's how I think they survive.
Well, here's the thing. The only game, like you're right, he's basically retired. I think Tim said, unless I can do something new with it, like genuinely capital N new, I don't think I can return. Even if they asked me to return to Fallout, I don't think I would. Mm-hmm. I think I had to finally give up that dream. He even said that basically openly. He's like, would I return for Fallout? And he even says, I needed to be something new. Because even with every single Tim Cain game, it was something either mechanically new or setting-wise new. Because there's a lot of mechanical differences between Arcanum and Fallout 1. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of mechanical differences.
Yeah.
The sheer build, because let's be honest, there's one build in Fallout 1, a real build, right? You dump into intelligence, you dump into agility, and you pick gifted. Like, there's no other reason to build anything else in Fallout 1. Unless you want, like, the retard dialogue options.
Yeah, or a challenge. I mean, there's other stuff that works, but it definitely has the... it's not as thoroughly tested, for sure, or play tested as the later stuff. And it was kind of innovating. It was kind of doing a new thing, and they just hadn't mastered the play style stuff quite as well. But there is some flexibility. So I don't want to challenge her. We know we'll probably do Fallout at some point if we keep doing the King corner. We'll probably eventually get there.
We'll do. Well, we got it after Arcana. We have to do
Vampire. Yeah, no question.
We got to do. Let's see. What we should Cain corner next to Vamp Chronicles or the canines. No, the canines of Cain, right? Because canine is another word for tooth.
Yeah. So, like, the sharp teeth.
The canines of Cain versus the fangs of Fargo.
And Cain's a character in that book too, or that game. So you have the Knights of Cain.
Yeah, I mean, the
Sons of Cain.
Yeah, Somalians are taking Cain's jobs. They're taking antediluvian jobs.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So, what's your thoughts on this? What after showing? Do you think I'm on the right track with this showing what the Todd's Law looks like and the contrast between the Cain codes?
I think so. Mike, my ideas firmed up in terms of Todd's Law being this sort of an aspect of refinement culture, as opposed to like any kind of artistic thing. And then I guess in reference to Cain, it's this idea that you have these artistes out there, right? You have these people that are called to do the opposite, which is like to build up complexity, challenge, and it's kind of like stuff we talked about before, where like you can build up a small and loyal audience, and then that attracts the Todds of the world. I think because again, remember Todd didn't invent Elder Scrolls; he came in once it was like a modest property, and then he had some really good influence, I think, early on, probably in making it more enjoyable to a larger audience. But people that have that tendency, they just, I don't know, they just lack that artistic streak, and that and so they'll keep making something into a marketable property, and to the point where they actually they eat their seed, the seed they should be saving to grow one day, right?
They eat the seed.
Yeah,
I think you've been learning too much from Tim Cain's private life.
Jesus Christ!
You know what? Speaking of seed and organisms, I think a final metaphor to use is also from our good friend Oswald B. Spangler. Actually,
another Spangler quote.
Yes, listen. I just shouted to Jack PC. We're doing a monthly series. We're doing the entirety of Volume 2 of Decline of the West.
Oh my god.
and one of us has to survive it to the end. We're going Spangma all over each other. We're going to see who's the real Spangma male.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we're composing the Spangma male Bible, and in the first 3 chapters, I was turned out during the recording. By the way, the first episode was not good from my end. It was not a good game performance.
Yeah, I'm aware of what you were doing the day before, so I'm amazed you even showed up.
I was made to sit up straight, but Spengler talks about the idea of trying to maintain the form of a law without understanding the character and roots of a law.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, for example, like Cicero, the Roman law was a law of bodies, literally physical bodies, the bodies of who belong to the polis or polis, which is basically the central city, a city of the people of an organic rooted culture.
Mm.
And you can't take a law which is found to be based on the bodies of citizens versus the bodies of foreigners versus the bodies of slaves. When I mean bodies, I mean capital B bodies, like physically instituted beings. Mm. And can you describe Cicero what intellectual property is? Like, what the fuck is intellectual property? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's ethereal. It's an ethereal concept, right? So when you take legal terms or once you make a legal terms or legal laws a system, when you try to systemize things and try to make a legal system be accurate and correct at all times for all places for all of eternity, it's a warped version of this Faustian idea of an infinite blanket covering all of existence itself. While in reality, Roman law was an organic process that was based on circumstances on a case-by-case basis. Mm-hmm. And you see this the idea of aesthetics. They try to either Brian Fargo knows the word. Let's say he knows the word reactivity. If you notice in marketing with Clockwork Revolution, you're like, oh, there's going to be choice and consequence or reactivity. They're making what's called an RPG. And what do fans want in RPG? They want reactivity. They want choice and consequence, right? That's an RPG thing, right? That's what the RPGs do, right? So you get to choose color A or color B at the endings, right? That's why Fallout 4 technically has multiple endings. You can kill your kid, or you can't kill your kid. You can blow up the factory or not blow up the factory, but you still get the same cutscene at the end, right? It's because it's like, oh, war never. As long as it ends with a war never changes, even though you don't understand what that quote even means. Reason why you put in that quote, it's again the forms and the legal laws, the systems that you're trying to mimic of a springtime of another culture that you kind of stole or inherited without actually living their embodied forms, right? So you give them a choice between A and B because that's what RPGs do. But the reason why they made you choose A and B to begin with was what Tim Cain said earlier when he says, "Why did we make you give choices?" It's because he says, "I'm not your teacher. I'm your DM." It comes from because he was always a kid. He says in the backstory, "I was always the dungeon master." Because I was the only one who could actually handle reactivity from one dude acting like a retard and going totally off the adventure plan. Mm-hmm. So he says it's based from being DM. You have to adapt. You made choice A. Necropolis is going to die unless you find that one pixel hunted sewer thing in underneath the sewers. Unless you find the water pump, then you can have your cake and eat it too. Unless you find that one random sewer, guess what? You get the water chip from the ghouls. They're all going to die. They're going to rot away. And then you get to save your people, but you get the consequence of them dying and the game telling you that they have died.
I think that's like a profound concept like that. Like it's not like a Chesterton fence thing, but it's similar where it's like if you don't know why the law is there, you can't really enforce the law in the way it was meant to be enforced, or in this way, like create a game along those lines. It kind of ties back to that RNG comment I made earlier about how zoomies are anti-RNG, and that has roots in the tabletop. And the same ideas you're talking about now have roots in the tabletop in terms of reactivity and trying to represent a game world or a setting, and then you play it with your friends. And I think with this refinement culture, we're getting farther and farther away until people don't recognize that as the starting point, right? Like that was like the reason old RPGs are just very strictly copies or similar to like D&D is because like that's the experience people were trying to replicate, right? And then it evolves. And there was kind of a sweet spot. There was a like a golden age where like a lot of Troika stuff was, I think, where it was getting streamlined, if you want to use that word. Not that it fit and worked on the computers better, but it still had those jagged edges where you had to learn a little bit of mechanics. Sometimes it was a little funky, but you would have really interesting reactivity because it was trying to represent a tabletop, like an experience like that. But now it's the BioWareification, right? Where it's late BioWare, where it really is turning into something else, where it's like more movie like, and it's like the game is a reference to a game, and this super super smooth learning curve, challenge curve, it has to be like so smooth. And I don't know, I'm struggling to find the right word. I think there's a different concept that probably captures this that I don't know or haven't cooked up yet. Um, yeah, but I think there's something underlying this the long term effect of Todd's Law, and like the way it's affected the way people think about, and this we're really zoomed on games, but I'll just stay on that, like the way people experience games and the reason people get frustrated with them now, because I think people get very frustrated with games not having what the kind of reactivity things we're talking about. Maybe they don't realize that's what they're asking for.
Yeah, because they tried the modern game. They tried to maintain the form, but with the old games like Fallout 1 or Arcanum, they maintained the feeling and the flavor. Like you want some very good micro example of this?
Mm-hmm.
When you play an old school RPG and you have a rope in your inventory, as soon as you see a well, the instant you see, can I click on it and can I go on down that well?
Mm-hmm.
I was playing a Russian Fallout fan mod, a fan game. It's Fallout Nevada and Fallout New Mexico. New Mexico Fallout no, I forgot the name of the Mexican one. Sonora. Fallout Sonora. Excellent, excellent. Probably the third best Fallout game of all time.
Mm-hmm.
The Russians know how to make a good Fallout game. It's one of the best games ever.
Mm-hmm.
And because in the starting town, if you have a rope in your inventory, like wait, I have a rope in my inventory. You drag it to the use thing. You click on the town's well, the water well. You can go in there and find an early starting submachine gun with just enough bullets to make it broken for a little period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a totally intuitive thing. The game doesn't spoon feed you about it, but it's something that's taken from Fallout 1 because you have to know how to use rope. Not only because remember, did you die at the glow your first time around in Fallout 1 or no?
No, I knew what I was doing.
Oh, okay, well I died from radiation poisoning.
Classic.
And I had to reload a 4-hour save previously.
Oh my god.
Yes, because you. Oh wait, the game tells me that the whole the glow is radiated, and I need rope. So not only do I have to pay attention to what my inventory is, the game will literally fuck you over unless you pay attention to see if you have Radix in your inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Which is complete. Which is actually, I guess you could say, potentially a ludo-narrative harmony. Man, the gameplay is in harmony with the narrative.
Yeah,
right. But it actually makes sense.
You have to really take stock. Like, oh hey, I'm going on a hike. I got to make sure I got water bottles. I got to make sure I got this and that. Like, it makes you think through it.
And would there be anything like that in a Bethesda game or in this fucking Clockwork Slop Orange?
Yeah, interestingly, they added it into New Vegas. Had like a survival mode too. But I don't know if the newer Fallouts did. They probably added it in.
After, with the new re-release that broke all your mods, that did it way better anyway. Yeah, but just that micro detail just says it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just the ability for systems to interact with systems and to have jank, like as a Cainism, like he's okay with jank. Whereas obviously Bethesda does have jank because they're just so big, but maybe they're trying to squash that with the simplicity. But I think we've gone on for a while. I think I have the concepts down. Let's see if anything else, Gabe, like final slopisms.
I'm glad we ended on a very profound. We name checked 2 Chud philosophers. We name checked Spangler, and we name checked Chesterton.
Big shout out the fat guys.
We're casting in the Chud check at very least.
Yeah, Mr. Teal, please. The one check we're missing is the one that's still alive. But
Mr. Thiel, please buy Arcanum from your people, the gnomes. The gnomes get representation. There's a Talmudic network in Arcanum. Just please buy it from Activision.
We have to do it. We have to do it to save the gnomes from themselves. They're not doing anything. You know who it is? It's not the gnomes. It's the genies, the Qatari genies. I mean the genies. They're the real ones pulling the strings.
Yeah, we need to help the Dark Gnomes to do a preemptive strike on the genies.
Yeah, just at their steamwork factory. Just knock out that steamwork factory, maintain the balance. All right, we're completely off the railroad rails at this point. So thank you, everyone. Go ahead.
No, I was about to say I'm glad to be back. I'm glad you survived your trip to the Orient. I'm glad I survived my trip down south.
Oh yeah,
we are back
in rare form. A lot more stuff coming. And I know you had the thing with Jack too. That's awesome. I'm excited to listen to that. What's the format? So you guys are just going to do like a chapter at a time?
So we're doing 3 chapters at a time.
Okay. Oh, that's going to be awesome. Especially those of us that never want to fucking read that book. So now I can pretend I've read it by just slowly listening to you guys do it.
Honestly, at this point, you probably absorbed most of it through sheer osmosis.
I unironically quoted it to someone the other day, like a line, like the child. What is it when people start asking whether to have children? A profound change has occurred. Yeah. I do that. My face literally became like a turtle face, like his Spangler's too. It was pretty bad. But anyway, if you listen this far, please obviously like, comment, subscribe, support us any way you can. We have Patreon too. Release some stuff early on there. And just honestly, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. If you have ideas for Slop Kings 4, let us know. We got our eyes open. We kind of take our time with this one until something really bugs us. We whip out the slop.
Until the Morrowind remake.
Oh God, don't jinx it. All right. Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night and good tugging.